Well, I've got a podcast and now I want to add this other thing. You start by offloading the post-production and everything onto a person or a team that can serve you so you can have more mental capacity because you intentionally subtract some things.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster. This episode's going to be a little bit different. I want to talk about the two things. There's things that can benefit you if you add them to what you're already doing. And there's things that can benefit you if you subtract them completely. And so it's actually more of like, is a dichotomy the right word for it? I pulled up the definition of dichotomy, and I think it'll work for these purposes. So when we're talking about these two ideas of adding things or subtracting things, they will be used in different times and in different places. To give you an idea or an example, when I'm helping a friend, now I don't charge for coaching or mentoring on fitness, but I've paid a lot of money to 3 different coaches. One was a coach that got me to a 6-pack. Another one was a coach that got me to growing my muscles really, really big. And I did a bodybuilding show. He had me eat certain things at certain times. And then I hired another one just for strength. So the strength one, hey, this isn't for looks at all. It's for you to be the best version of you, to be as strong as you possibly can, to move as well as you possibly can. The bodybuilding one was, hey, you need to look a certain way, but your health is going to be shitty. Like your health is going to be actually really, really bad. Your hormones are going to be really, really bad. Your mood is going to be really, really bad, but you're going to look great because you're going to be on stage and you're going to be shredded and you're going to be huge. And then the other one was, hey, how do we slowly and efficiently get you to 6-pack body fat, lean, in a way that is sustainable? So not unhealthy, so that we can maintain your hormones. So between these 3 different coaches, I learned a lot. And I have a lot of friends that ask me questions, and I'm constantly adding value to them. And in this, one of the things that I tell them is when it comes to your health, when it comes to the food that you eat and the exercise that you do, sometimes easier to add good things than it is to subtract bad things. Here's the idea here. Sometimes when we talk about just adding good things, it feels inhibiting. It feels claustrophobic. It feels like we're budgeting. It's stressful. It's frustrating. And I've learned this the hard way several different times between different coaches and at different stages of my health. Whereas if I was like cutting calories and trying to shred, it was very unsustainable. It made me unhappy because I couldn't have a beer. It made me unhappy because I couldn't have wine. It made me unhappy because I couldn't eat baked potatoes with the butter and the sour cream on them. It made me unhappy because I couldn't have ice cream. And I love ice cream. I couldn't have pizza. Pizza wasn't really part of my diet at that time. So for part of this, the coach, depending on which of the 3 coaches and what is the goal and how long you have to achieve the goal, and if you want it to be sustainable, sometimes it's easier to say, hey, I'm going to add something instead of take away something. Instead of me saying, I can't have beer, I'm not allowed to have wine, I shouldn't have sour cream and butter on my baked potato, I'm not allowed to eat pizza if I want to be shredded, and hey, I have to skip the ice cream. What I did instead is I added something. So what did I add? In that case, I added a whole bunch of protein. So I would wake up and instead of eating like a couple of eggs and a bowl of cereal or whatever, I would start by eating 10 eggs. I would add 10 eggs to the first thing that I did in the morning. And then I would eat whatever I want for the next meal. And then I would make sure to drink a protein shake for the 3rd meal. And then I would eat whatever I want for the 4th meal. And for the 5th meal, I could have whatever I want, but I'm going to have a double portion of the chicken. I could eat this and that. I could have the ice cream, but instead of just having like 1 or 2 chicken breasts, I'd have 2 to 4 chicken breasts. So what this does when you eat a lot of eggs or when you eat a lot of chicken, you feel full, you feel satiated, you feel happy, And you can't really fit a couple of beers. You can't really fit a pint of, or if it's me, it's a half gallon. But if it's a normal person, a pint or a quart of ice cream. But for me, I could easily eat a half gallon, just blah, 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 blah. That's why I was fat. But going back to it, I decided, hey, it makes me unhappy and it feels unsustainable. It makes me feel claustrophobic, if you will, to be confined to you're not allowed to have these things. So instead of saying, I'm going to subtract these things, they're no longer on the menu, I said instead, hey, I'm going to add 10 eggs in the morning, 1 protein shake in between these, and I'm going to double the protein for dinner. And by adding things, it allowed something to be sustainable. It allowed me to stay happy. And I knew that if I really wanted a beer, really wanted ice cream, I could still have it. But because of the metabolic change of some of these proteins, like eggs have like a shit ton of amino acids. I think there's like 9 grams of protein or 7 grams of protein and 9 different blockchain amino acids that are crazy good for you. They have so many vitamins and minerals. They're supposed to be like the multivitamin of the earth, the nature's multivitamin. When I add so many of those, I get full. I feel great. It's good for me. And then I know that I could still drink a beer. I could still do this. I could have my wine. I could have a little bit of ice cream, as long as I'm adding those things to what I'm already doing. And then I never feel like I'm missing out. Now let's flip it. Sometimes it's better to subtract things than to add things. When is that the case? Well, I've got a podcast and now I want to add this other thing. Well, maybe you start by subtracting the hard work of the podcast. Maybe you start by offloading like the post-production and everything onto a person or a team that can serve you. So now that you have more time and energy, you can be a better mom or dad to your kids. You can be a better husband or wife to your spouse. You can be a better churchgoer. You can be a better human. You can have more mental capacity because you intentionally subtract some things. So just be thinking about this. It's a very simple podcast episode, less than 10 minutes. With the idea of sometimes it's better to add something good than to subtract something bad. And in other times, it's better to subtract something than to add something because we can get stressed and overwhelmed by trying to do too much. We can raise our cortisol. We can be stressed. We can get angry at our kids. I know from experience, by the way, I did that. In 2016, 17, and 18, all the way through December of 18, I felt like I was a monster because I was working like 80-ish hours. And for me, what did I add? What did I subtract? Well, I started by adding a virtual assistant, and that allowed me to relax a lot better. She started handling more stuff, and I had more free time. And then I decided to subtract the beer. So I had a regiment. I would go on every Sunday. I would go grocery shopping every Sunday. And I happened to buy a 30-pack of beer every freaking time. And one day I decided, it was December of 2018, I decided rather than buying a 30-pack and drinking basically 4 or 5 or 6 beers every single night, I'm going to replace that for soda water, just sparkling water, seltzer water. So instead of buying a 30-pack of Coors Banquet, I bought 30 seltzer waters, LaCroix, from the grocery store. Now, they were almost the same price, so I wasn't really saving that much money. I was saving some money, but I still was able to sit down, open a can, and hear that fizz, right? To hear that shh. And that made me feel really good because that was like my habit was once I cracked the beer open and heard the carbonation exiting, that was me signaling to myself that my day was done. It was time that I got to relax. And so I subtracted that and I added the soda water. I just switched them out and it was much, much better for me. It was much, much healthier. It started me in a path. So I hired a virtual assistant. I added a virtual assistant. I subtracted beer. I added soda water. I added getting up in the morning and just being outside for 20 minutes. So whether it was cold or not, I would put on a jacket if I needed to. And I'd go for like a 10-minute, I would walk away from the house or run away from the house for 10 minutes. And then I would come back. And so I'd spend 20-ish minutes outside every day. I just added that. I said, hey, every morning I'm just going to, regardless of the weather, I'm just going to put something on and I'm going to go away from the house for 10 minutes and then I'm going to come back. I added that. So you might add things to your business. You might subtract things from your business. You might add things from your plate of work for your podcast. You might subtract things from your plate of work for your podcast. You might add a teammate to take over some stuff and delegate. You might subtract a service that you were providing for other people that you never really made money from. Maybe it didn't fulfill you either. It was just like a wasted service that you had. So you subtract it and it allows the other parts that you're doing to be able to be more fulfilling. You might subtract working on Sundays. You might add taking your kids to church on Sunday. You might add taking your kids to the park on Sunday. You might add taking your kids jeeping. That's what I do. That's my church. Taking my kids jeeping, going mountain biking, going on a hike with them. That's our church. The nature is our church. You might add that. You might subtract something else. Consider it because it's going to benefit you as a human. It's going to benefit you as a podcast host. It's going to benefit you as a business owner. I'll see you on the next episode. This is serious. Don't go. Now that you've gotten whatever value that you feel that you got, the actionable takeaways, you need to implement the stuff that you learned. If you remember me talking about bird church once, and they learn how to fly, and then they walk home, I don't want you to walk home. I want you to fly home. So take the steps, take the actionable steps for your benefit so that you can become a better podcaster. That's the only thing that I ask of you. And I'll see you for more actionable tips on the very next episode.